Okay. I'm Katerina. I'm going to be talking about asexuality. Asexuality is defined as, or someone who's asexual is someone who does not or rarely experiences sexual attraction. It's more of an umbrella term that talks about people who experience anywhere from no to occasional sexual attraction to people of any gender. The failure to adequately inform people about asexuality has harmful consequences. So I'm going to be talking about how asexuality is a lot more common than most people think. The majority of the population is uninformed about asexuality and how a lack of public awareness leads to harmful consequences. Asexuality is actually a lot more common than people think. In 2004, CNN did an article on a study done by Anthony Bover, who's a professor at Brock University and a researcher of human sexuality. This article stated that the study was based on interviews of 18,000 people and their sexual practices. It offered respondents a list of options. One read, "I have never felt sexually attracted to anyone at all." 1% said that they agreed with this statement. Now, 1% of the population doesn't seem like very much, but that's approximately 73 million people worldwide. And the way that this study was set up didn't describe people who are demisexual or gray A. Gray A feels some sexual attraction to people, and then demisexual people feel sexual attraction after establishing a strong emotional bond. So that 1% of the population doesn't describe everybody who can be considered asexual. Second, the majority of the population is uninformed about asexuality. Does anybody know, did anybody know what asexuality was before I started talking? Does anybody know anybody who's asexual? We live in what's called a heteronormative society, where heterosexual people are the norm, and anyone who's different is sort of forced into this idea that you should be heterosexual. And there's a lot of awareness about other aspects of the LGBT community, like gay pride, that's fairly common, and more so for bisexual and transgender communities. But there hasn't been much done for the asexual. We live in a society where sex is everywhere. Books, movies, TV, and it's considered to be not quite human to not have sexual attraction. Third, a lack of public awareness leads to harmful consequences. So in a lot of this pop culture, you see characters who are gay and bi more often, but any character who has absolutely no interest in sex is rarely human. So one example that I know of, a video game series called Dragon Age, if anybody's heard of it. There's one character who is considered a spirit, and he states at one point that he has absolutely no sexual attraction, but if you choose to make him more human, he gets into a relationship and he attributes that to his humanity. This is really harmful thinking for anybody who is asexual, because it's considered to be inhuman if you lack this sexual attraction. And a lot of people feel broken or like they don't belong in society because of this. There's a really good example by Courtney Ehrenhofer, who's an asexual author or writer for the Huffington Post. She says, okay, think of any major sporting event that you don't partake in, be it the Super Bowl, World Series, or March Madness. Think of how much advertising goes into that. Everywhere you look, stores are selling something to do with the sport, like jerseys, hats, and ridiculous accessories. Even the supermarket is having sales on all their game day essentials. And you can't turn on the TV for 5 minutes without having a Doritos ad featuring some beefed up sports star or crazy amounts of advertising for the event itself. All the major retailers and food chains get in on the action and have sports posters hanging from the ceiling, endorsing donuts or sneakers. You can't even go out to the mall without tripping over people talking about it when you're not walking into giant cardboard athlete cutouts. There's always at least one betting pool going around if you work in an office, people discussing it at their desks all day, and that one obnoxious coworker who puts bobbleheads and hats on their desks in support of their favorite team. Then there's at least half a dozen people in your neighborhood hosting viewing parties and about 1 million social media posts of people supporting their favorite team or tearing down their rivals. It headlines most newspapers and magazines. The athletes involved are suddenly in documentaries, and the entire lineup for Jimmy Fallon suddenly looks like every celebrity who isn't an athlete suddenly came down with a crippling case of stage fright. By now, I'm sure you have a pretty good picture of this in your mind. And by the time Super Bowl Sunday, the World Series, or the March Madness Championship rolls around, you're probably now remembering how annoyed you are with this particular sport, and how much you just really, really want people to stop talking about it before you lock yourself in a dark soundproof box, just to get away from it all. This is what it's like to be alienated by our culture. But as an asexual, I don't just deal with this once a year on Super Bowl Sunday, I deal with it every single day. She is not the only person who feels like this. And there are millions of people out there who do experience this every day.
Okay, all the structural stuff is fine. I think you need to develop a little bit more of the controversy on this. It's that third point is the place where you seem to be developing some argument. The first couple of points really seem to be kind of explaining what the issue is and presenting us with some factual data. The third point is where there's an argument that there's a harm because of our lack of understanding of this or our unfamiliarity with it. The only proof, though, that you have on that is that long quote from the author that goes on for a long period of time drawing this extensive analogy to sports kinds of things. And I'm sure that the world is full of people who feel exactly that way, not just about sports once a year, but every day of the year. I know that I've got a classroom that's half full of people who feel that way about politics on a daily basis, who feel alienated from all that kind of stuff. Why are people talking about all this stuff? I don't give a damn about it. I'm indifferent. I feel like an outsider. So do they not participate in society? Are they unable to form relationships? Do they become less productive citizens? Do people bully them or abuse them in some way? Or is it just that they feel kind of left out and disconnected? When you say alienation, I mean, that's a dramatic term, but I don't know that alienation is necessarily harmful in and of itself. I've got people that I feel alienated from all the time. It doesn't hurt me at all, except that it pisses me off when I think about them. But that's, there's no consequence to that. I think you need to build something up a little bit more on that. The first 2 points are, like I said, especially the second point is largely assumed, and it sounded like you're depending on the audience survey to give you data on that particular point. But it's well organized. The sources that you did cite were pretty consistent. Thank you. I appreciate everybody who was ready today. The people that we didn't get to, we'll take care of you on